Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third episode of React Native Rundown. It's a show where we take a deep dive into latest trends and tech in React Native tech industry. Today, we are specially talking about advanced notifications in React Native. To talk about that, I have two experts right here with me, Shan and Aditya Kumar. Please welcome both of them.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. So let's get this started. Notifications are quite a powerful tool to engage with your users, have user engagement, have critical informations delivered to those users. So, to get started, how would you describe what notifications are and how they are implemented in React Native?
Yeah, so I would say notifications are one of the most powerful tools in a developer's belt, right? Simply being able to notify the user when something requires the user's attention, or just captivating the user's attention and drawing that attention towards your app can be incredibly powerful for numerous reasons. Um, and how notifications are implemented in React Native has progressed a lot over the years. So, while there used to be some of the older, simpler packages such as React Native push notification and things like these that provided basic functionality, today there are much more advanced packages, open source packages that are in the market today. Um, so, one good example that I would personally recommend is Notify, right? So it used to be a premium privately maintained package, which is now fully free and open source. And Notify offers some of the most advanced implementations of notifications out there with React Native.
Aditya, do you have anything to add
Yeah.
to that?
So if we are talking about notifications, then I would say, like, let's take an example of WhatsApp or any such social media application which require user attention at a very fast pace. Like, you don't want to miss out things, right? If there is a sale going on, you want to be in that sale. You want to see the details and everything. So there are many things which we can achieve through via notifications, like getting the user attention. Okay. uh, we can check how our application is performing based on analytics, like on the click of notification, like how the user is going through different screens, or different or how he is traversing through the application. We can check and make the changes based on that. So how we can implement the notification in React Native. Right now, the most important one is which we are using is Firebase. It provides a lot of capability, and on top of, as he said, on top of that, Notify adds more what we call advantage over the normal notifications, where you can edit, where you can customize based on how you want it to be, basically.
Yep. Notifications quite becomes the key differentiator most of the time between mobile applications and web applications. So most of the time, business use case for having a mobile application might be just to have a proper show and proper scheduling of notifications, and the separation of delivery of notification through cloud and showing the notifications through some primitive packages like React Native push notifications, as you mentioned, or going with Notify, or maybe another package tomorrow. That has been a great thing which has been developed in last quite years in React Native. So we all agree that the notifications are pretty powerful tool to engage to your customers and land them to your particular screens what you want to grab your attention to. So on note of that, what are the advanced features in current day and age which developers can utilize on notifications in React Native?
Yeah, sure. Great question, Neeraj. So, notifications have come a long way, right? So it's gone from just simple text notifications, right, from a title and summary, to doing so much more. And this is true in terms of appearance, that is how they look, right? In terms of the entire behavior, right? How they interact with the user, the sounds they make, the vibrations, things like that. Um, how the flow is, right, when for actionable notifications and things like that. So all of this has been completely it's progressed a lot over the years. So some of the advanced features that Notify provides is, let's say, for example, critical notifications, right? That is one thing that is really important when you require immediate and urgent delivery, when you require urgent attention of the users, when you require urgent user attention, right? Let's say for uh, some really important event or an activity, or even for um, some apps actually use it for severe weather alerts and things like that. So critical notifications are a major one. Another one is full screen notifications. So this is an Android only feature, but it's great that Notify actually lets us create headless UI intents and full screen notifications that can be take over the entire screen, play like use it for like VoIP calls, things like that. Right? Actionable notifications are also really great. You can just tap on the user can just tap on an action, and you can interact, use a lot of flows that can link back to your app, right? A lot of styling and behavior as well, custom sounds, remote notifications, mutable content, timers, progress bars, foreground services, all of these things, like let's say playing music from Spotify, YouTube Music, right? That would be a foreground service. Yes. Or navigating through maps, right? These services require the notification to be sticky, and they require your location or your music um, access, right? Prolonged access. That can be done through Notify. Even countdowns, progress bars when you're downloading files, all of this stuff is possible free and open source today, and that's really great.
Mm-hmm. Aditya, do you want to anything?
Yeah, if we talk about the advanced feature which have come into play in terms of React Native, are like earlier we don't have features like, let's say if you want to show different collapsible notification, you have to send out different push notification from the backend, or like let's say if you have implemented local notification, then you are sending one by one another notification. But right now we can have this collapsible where you can see like let's say if you are messaging me, then I can see all the notifications in a single tray instead of having different. So that is one feature which
leveraging the
leveraging
grouping
the-
of notifications
exactly.
in a better way.
Then another feature which is like replacing the notification with a different notification. Like earlier we used to cancel it, and then that's had a few problem with it. That has changed quite a lot. On top of that, as he was saying, VoIP feature, which is a very great tool for iOS and Android as well. Androids provide a lot of different. I mean, Android gives us a lot of way how we can implement a notification flexibility, you can say. Yeah, but that is not possible in iOS. But with the advent of VoIP or call cape, we have got a lot of more ability to add how we can send out notification. If you want to call someone, then there had been some issues earlier, but with the constant changes and with the advent of new notifications library, we have got all these in notifications.
Yeah,
right now.
wonderful. As mentioned by both of you, there are key things to take here. One is that you can have rich media on your notifications. You can have progress bar. You can have counters, and so on. And this is a two-way development. It's not that Notify provides you an API which was long existing in Android. It's neither that Notify makes it and then Android makes it again. So OSs are evolving, and so are our packages.
Yes.
One of the things which is hip these days is the dynamic island, which you see in iOS. And the more you use your OS specific features, the more you make use of, let's say, Android lets you group notifications way before iOS does.
Yeah.
And as soon as your package adapts to that, as soon as your application adapts to that, your notifications are way more cleaner, way more polished, and in turn, way more interactive. I want to touch on one of the points you mentioned was that something like a map or something like Spotify, it would be running on foreground service. And from my past experience in React Native notifications, The distinction between a foreground service and the background service plays a huge role.
Mm.
So, anything on the nuances of that do you want to touch upon?
Mm. So, one thing I will say about just regular notifications and foreground services in general is there is this mistake that a lot of people make is that they just deliver the notification or they just run whatever they need to action they need to run from the main app itself. They run it on the entire main thread on the entire main app component, right? That is a big mistake. So, whenever you're handling actions related to notifications, always ensure that they are run headlessly, right? Ensure that whenever someone taps on a notification or whenever a foreground service is triggered, you are not calling your entire app, because an entire app can be incredibly heavy,
Yes.
right? Let's say for Spotify or Amazon or things like that, you definitely have a store, you have so hundreds of API calls going on, you're loading images, you're rendering things on the Fabric renderer, right? All of this stuff is completely unnecessary. You can save a lot of memory, CPU usage, and battery, right? Which is all things that the user would very much appreciate, right? Just by running things headlessly. Do not mount your store, do not render your apps and views and images, do not make unnecessary API calls and all this stuff. All of this can be avoided by just headless actions being performed whenever notifications or foreground services are dealt with.
So, having foreground services on a headless task.
That is one of them. So, in my experience, Notify actually provides callbacks that you can actually use your foreground services with.
Mhm.
Right? They have long running, they have promises that do that very well. But again, a lot of people can just directly implement these Notify promises in their main app.js itself and just like be done with it along with all of their use effects and renders and all of that, which is a bad practice. So, there is something called headless app invocation in both iOS and Android, right? It may be a little complicated to implement because you will have to go into the native app delegate and the Android files as well, right? You will have to go into all of these files and make some changes. But if you actually do implement this, um, the system and the native code itself can actually pass flags to React Native saying that this invocation was headless or this invocation was through a notification. And you can actually use that data to sort of decide whether you want to render, how much of your app you want to render, right? How much resources you want to take out.
Oh, so
Yeah.
kind of like an instance of application which gets open up when you click on a notification.
Yeah. So, micro apps, if you will call them, right?
Yes.
If you will. So, what we are doing on a project that I've implemented personally, right? So, we're actually not even registering the main app component itself for certain full screen notifications. You know how for every basic React Native application, you are initializing an app registry or register
Yes,
component,
yes.
right? We are registering different components depending on how much of the app we need to render. So we are doing that as well for extreme separation of foreground notifications and like full screen notifications and things like that.
So let me get this right. So a foreground service calls a full screen notification.
No, they are two different things. We are
Okay.
using both foreground services and full screen notifications, but we are using them in two different
No, no,
contexts.
I was saying like let's say a foreground service calls out full screen notification, triggers a full screen notification. Uh, can you tell me an example where you are using some sort of a micro app, as you said?
Mm. Yeah, so that is actually used in the full screen notification, not in the foreground service. So foreground service, we are just an easy way that we're actually solving the problem for foreground services is instead of mounting our main app component, we are just mounting an empty fragment, right? So that prevents that happens before our store and all of that is invoked. So that sort of prevents unnecessary mounting and all that. So that's what we're doing for a foreground service, right? But for full screen notifications, we actually do not need any service or any long running activity at all. So once we trigger the notification, once we display the content, play the sound and whatever that is as per user preferences, um, the actual display of the notification, right? The screen that you're rendering, that comes up full screen. So that is being rendered through React Native, but instead of mounting the entire app, we're creating a separate, we're registering a separate component in our app registry called just for full screen notification, just for that UI, and that's what we're rendering whenever full screen notification comes in.
Okay, so in the gist of it, the full screens render is independent from
Yes.
my application. Also, my foreground service, which is in charge of handling the foreground notifications
Mm.
or messages as we called them in Firebase. So that is running again on a headless service,
Yes.
and that's not a part of your application.
Yeah.
And that helps you, let's say someone clicks on a notification, to render a part of notification only if
Yes.
someone is clicking on a notification,
Yes.
and not having to run your full
Yes.
application at the play.
Exactly.
So even when your application is being killed by your cache cleaner,
Yes.
or your RAM manager or anything,
Yes.
your notification service, foreground notification service, doesn't go away.
Exactly.
Are you using a background handler on top of that?
Yeah, we do still require background handlers for when the app is closed and things like that. So it's still required, right? Because we do have other types of notifications as well, apart from foreground services and all that. And to ensure timely delivery of remote notifications and all of that stuff, background handlers are still required.
Okay. So, how do you? Okay. So, when I have generally implemented notifications in React Native, what I assume is if my app is open, every notification I'm getting is a foreground notification,
Yes.
and I show the notification.
Yes.
If my app is closed, my background notification gets a remote notification, shows up on my notification tray. Is there anything else to it?
So it is not so black and white,
Yeah.
right? So one thing I would clarify is that a foreground notification is different from a foreground service. All right, foreground notification is when the app is open and you're looking at the app and a notification comes in, right? That's a
Yes.
foreground notification. But a foreground service can actually happen even when the app is closed, right? So foreground service is mostly Android only,
Yes.
right? There are certain Android iOS implementations as well, but like when you're playing music or when you're downloading a file on Google Drive or something, right? You've got these progress bars and these music controls and all that. So those things run even when the app is closed, but the notification is actually sticky over there, right? And they're actually running long running tasks. So that's a foreground service.
So, if I could just add an example here, my Spotify application might not be running. My Spotify music notification still shows up. My progress bar, drag, next, previous, pause, everything works because of foreground services handling that.
Yes.
Without the need of Spotify UI to be loaded into the screen.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Anything you would want to add, Aditya, on handling notification on background and on foreground?
Yeah, so one thing which he has said, basically, which I have followed in a few of my projects, where I mean, you don't have to call the whole application. Try to avoid as much as you can. Like, so the one which he has developed, let's say, he's using full screen notification, and he has created another app registry over there. Uh, Even with the simple application, like most of the people used to do, they used to do, they used to call the API and everything on as soon as they push a notification with that itself. So that is the one thing which I used to avoid. And another thing is with the background notification and with the background services, there has been some issues with the Play Store and the App Store. Like you cannot use background services for like they used to cancel your application on the Play Store and App Store itself. So that has been an issue with the background using background services. Earlier they used to accept it, but now they are rejecting it because of using of background services. You cannot track someone's location, right, in background. So and similarly there has been issues with the background services usage. So there are few implementations like as I said, call which can be used. for the background notifications. If you want to show elaborate kind of notification or something else, like not just a simple notification, so you can use that for that particular purpose. Even Callkeep has some issues with the uh, app store. uh, I mean, they basically they ask you to try to remove these applications from your. So it depends how you are implementing all these services. Basically, how much you are putting limitations on. You are not just using it like in a random way. Like if you're calling background services, call it like whenever you need it. Mm, Try to stop it, and all those things are there in play.
Oh, excellent point, Aditya. So I would just like to add to both of those points. So when it comes to background notifications, right? Um, like you said, when foreground notifications, the app is open and you just expect the notifications to come up instantly and it's all done. But when it comes to background notifications, operating systems run a lot of optimizations and all these things in the background, right? So for both iOS and Android, when you close the app, there is still some amount of cleanup that is pending, right? Some part of um, the thread, the service has not been stopped yet, right? So you will still get notifications instantly for maybe a few minutes, right? I believe it is 30 minutes on iOS, and on Android it depends,
It
right?
depends based
Yeah,
on
yeah,
iOS.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and after that, you may not actually get notifications, especially for local notifications. It will simply not reach your app from the Firebase, from FCM or whatever provider you're using, right? It will simply not reach your app. And this has been a bigger issue on Android actually. So this is something called battery optimization,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So the reason why this is such a big issue is that the Android itself and a lot of OEMs, right, a lot of manufacturers have this silent whitelist for certain apps, right? Like let's say WhatsApp or Facebook, Instagram, and these sort of some of the bigger players in the market. So these apps are whitelisted by default in Android and in a lot of OEM installations of Android. So they don't have to worry about background notification delay or battery optimization or failure to deliver notifications or anything of that sort, because um, their apps are not throttled as much in terms of incoming notifications. But when it comes to indie developers or newer applications that are entering the market, so these apps, there is no way for these apps to actually enter the whitelist, right, directly, easily, right? It's still possible. The user has to manually do it, right? But a lot of our apps get throttled by battery optimization just to save resources in the background, and our notifications don't come in, right? And the thing is, this is different for different manufacturers. So Huawei devices have a different whitelist, and Samsung devices have a different whitelist, and stock Android Pixel devices have a different whitelist, right? So it's and most of them are not very transparent about it. So this is one of the issues that are there right now.
And are these restrictions only for foreground services which we make, or is it applicable to background handlers as we put on?
So this is specifically applicable to background handlers actually, because what they do is they sort of kill the app and they prevent.
They prevent any activity from your
Yes.
application to be running on your
Yes.
thread.
Yes.
Okay. This brings me to my another topic, which is what are the challenges you have faced on implementing notifications on either of the platforms? Let's not go to Windows or any other platform. Let's be honest. React Native is made. I mean, React Native is used to build iOS and Android applications. So, any particular nuance or any particular challenge you have faced on either of the platforms when you are implementing those?
Mm. Yeah.
So the one which you already mentioned is the
Yeah,
battery
like I
optimization.
said, battery optimization. That is one of the biggest challenges on Android, right? And something really needs to be done about that. Another challenge on iOS is that iOS does not give you as much freedom in terms of the UI customization and things like that. So full screen notifications don't exist. Foreground services have limited functionality. It's not the same as Android. grouping is not the same, right? So there is limited functionality in terms of like styling and things like that. But we have actually found that remote notifications on Android seem to be very reliable. So that was a good thing for us.
So, to cut you off here, so remote notifications in Android meaning something delivered by APNS.
Yes.
APNS is
And
Android.
iOS, sorry,
What?
iOS, yeah.
Yeah, Android is
Android
to
is just
the
FCM.
FCM's
Yeah.
API. Yeah. So FCM's remote notifications are supposedly more reliable than something from APNS.
No, so actually, when you're using React Native packages for notifications, right, the implementation sort of differs. So, how our structure currently is this, where our backend is sending all of our notifications to FCM, right? That's our primary provider for notifications, and we have integrated APNS with our FCM.
Yes.
So FCM is relaying it to APNS, and that's getting delivered, right? But the thing is, there are limitations on um, customizability when you want like heavily customized notifications like foreground services and full
Mhm.
screen and all of that stuff. So FCM notifications cannot uh, reliably deliver that directly from remote, right? You can't deliver remote notifications that are full screen because you will have to do a lot of customization and all of that stuff. So which is why you will have to settle for data notifications and things like that, and that is where the reliability sort of takes a hit. So that's an issue. So if maybe FCM can implement remote notifications with the customizability and like the content mutability, that would be nice.
So with APNS, if we opt for APNS remote notification, the customizability takes ahead. So you have to rely on data notifications. So you can use that data and process it to show a notification on iOS. Is it?
Yeah, something of that sort. So on Android as well, like I was saying. So
Yes, but Android seems to be more reliable because of the background service. Whatever restriction there is, but when it runs, it runs.
Yeah. So as long as you get the user to fix the background battery optimization problem, it's good.
Yeah, I think I know the answer to it. And this might be a problem for everyone. Remote notifications, first of all, their customizability is a little different than what you get on FCM.
Yes.
So first you will have to be well versed on APNs, how they work. Then again you have problems with customizing them because you are not handling the data.
Yes.
You are sending the notification to APNs. Apple listens to it, shows the notifications.
Yes.
Your code doesn't come into picture anywhere. I mean, not in case of data notifications when you're doing remote notifications. So customizability certainly takes a hit, but if you're just showing text notifications, I would say APNS might be more reliable.
Yeah.
Because you will get the notification to Apple almost every time.
Yeah. It is much more reliable. And so there is also something in APNS called mutable content, right? Yes. So mutable content does allow you to actually modify the notification and all of that. So there is that, and Notify provides direct implementations and like really good guides on how to do that as well. So that's good.
As he said, we have got Notify. That is a great advancement. But even after that, like we do have to like juggle a lot into the native codes for a lot of a variety of different kind of feature you if you want to implement. So that is another issue. And even like if you go to the iOS side, uh, I have seen that like if you want to send a notification for if you're calling someone, like let's say there I have seen three different apps. Let's take example of WhatsApp and Telegram. So if you're calling someone on WhatsApp, what it will do, it will send out the notification on every 5 seconds instead of having just a smooth run of the notification call basically. And what the Telegram will do, they will just send you a just a simple message kind of notification even if you are calling. So this has been bigger issues on iOS side, which I have noticed, uh, and that is not an ideal way. Like you will miss calls, like in that way. Like if you're calling someone, you will miss calls. It will just come and it will go away for 5 seconds. That is one issue. Then again, the call keep have some issues with the Apple Store. That is, if you are not implementing it in a correct way, or if you are missing out something, they will try to block your application to going to stores.
So yeah, just to add to some of the other issues that occur today, right, in terms of notification, the nuances per se. So when when you would actually try implementing advanced sounds and things like that, I feel like most developers will run into issues on both platforms. All right, and I'm talking specifically advanced sounds and for important notifications. So let's say on Android, for example, right? Um, there is no concept of critical notifications, right? So if you really want to alert someone of something that is really urgent, like let's say a severe weather alert, or in our case, since we're a DevOps and incident management platform, let's say you have downtime on an application that you built, right? Something is really going down and is costing you business minutes. That is a severe critical incident that where every minute counts, right? Let's say you want to notify someone of these kind of things. So this gets a bit tricky on Android when you account for do not disturb and silent mode and things like these, right? So you can either have to get the user to sort of whitelist your app in do not disturb, and if it's in silent mode or if it's in mute or vibrate. Currently on React Native, there is no reliable way of actually figuring out which state the app is in, which state your device is in, because we've tried this on multiple devices already, on multiple manufacturers, and with each manufacturer and each version of Android, the you get different values for silent and vibrate and do not disturb, and even zero volume, and all of these sort of overlap. There is no reliable way of actually figuring out what state your app is, what state your what volume state your device is in, right? And providing urgent or critical notifications. So that's one thing that should sort of be improved, right?
Actually, the DND, the silent mode, volume, these
Yeah.
things are, I don't think, controlled by your AOSP package, as in the stock Android package. Whatever IAM service you have on top of that, these services are sort of controlled by that. So maybe in tomorrow, if someone decides to make this as a feature, sorry, as a package where we can listen to what state of our device is in, first he will have to maybe conditionally write those cases for multiple IAMs out there. There could be Oxygen, there's Huawei's, whatever that is called, this MIUI, this Realme as well.
Yeah.
There are a lot of them, and also the definition varies.
Yeah.
Like somewhere silent could be DND, and
Yeah.
somewhere DND could be silent. So
Exactly.
the definition also varies.
Exactly.
That's also a case to look on.
In our case, we found that zero volume was equivalent to vibrate in some cases, and zero volume was equivalent to silent in some
It is
cases.
exactly. So in I remember in MIUI 11, this
Yeah.
got changed.
Yeah.
So earlier, volume 0 used to mean vibrate.
Yeah.
Now, volume 0 means silent. And
Yeah,
both are
exactly,
different things.
exactly.
Yes.
So this was an issue, and a lot of our customers were coming in saying we actually want our phones to be on silent because of like other apps and personal reasons, but we really need these critical notifications from your app. Like, can you do something about this? So an interesting way we solved this is, so initially we considered a lot of approaches. There were a few packages in React Native that can actually give you the state and override the state and all that. So we had discussed maybe like overriding the volume and things like that, which is an approach that some really big companies use, right? So apparently PagerDuty uses that. They override your volume and things like that. But
Which one? Sorry.
PagerDuty. It's
Okay.
an incident management platform. So, but that is it's a really hazy and unreliable approach, right? Because let's say you override someone's system volume in the middle of the night, and it fails to set it back to silent, right? You are going to wake that poor person up for unnecessary sales and offers and all of that stuff, right?
Yes.
So an interesting approach that we settled on is actually playing important alerts on the alarm channel. So since our alerts were actually really critical, right, and we needed to sort of alert the user no matter what time of the day it is, because these are very important incidents that are coming in. So we actually settled for playing our our sounds and all of that stuff, our notifications on the alarm channel. So that sort of allowed us, because even no matter what you do with your D&D and silent and vibrate, no matter what you set these modes on, no IEM will actually set your alarm to 0.
Yep.
So that's an interesting solution there.
So iOS you solved it using critical notifications,
Yes.
and Android you solved it using alarm.
Yes.
One other thing to mention here, that not all IEMs would handle call and notification volume the same way.
Mm.
So maybe there could be a confusion where you're getting the call volume, but you actually meant to get notification volume. They might be combined in some, and they might be different in some. So it will depend on use cases, right? Also, I'm assuming custom sounds would be a little of a problem in iOS,
Yeah,
or is it?
I agree. So custom sounds are definitely an issue on iOS, because one thing is you can't use sounds from anywhere, right? Because iOS apps are sandboxed, so you can sort of only use the sounds that you provide, and in fact you cannot even use system sounds, like all system sounds to an extent. So this actually made it much harder, because on Android, right, you can use sounds from any app, any location. You can even download custom sounds and just select whatever sound you want.
Yes.
And the system notification system just gives you permission, just change sound, and you can just select anything that you want anywhere on your device.
You can, I guess, play your own MP3.
Yeah, you can play your own MP3s, anything,
Yeah.
right? But on iOS, it's sandboxed, and you can only use the sounds that you provide. Even for remote sounds from URLs, there are certain limitations. And even for system sounds, this was shocking to us when we implemented this, all right? So you cannot even use system sounds unless you copy those sounds to your sandbox. So yeah, that was really interesting. That was really odd. But yeah, so that is exactly what we did. We are allowing our users to use system sounds as well, because some people, I mean, how many ringtones can you, or how many sounds can you provide yourself, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes users just prefer what's already on the system. So
And also, we are not sound engineers, so
yeah,
probably system sounds are better.
Yeah. So unless you have like a dedicated team to make notification sounds, so you're better off with system sounds. And we actually allowed this. We actually implemented this successfully by actually
So on
copying the sounds to
Android,
our
you guys are
sandbox.
using system sounds as well?
On Android, we're allowing users to set anything.
Okay,
They can
so
set any sound that they want.
okay, from your app, but they might be selecting system sounds itself, right?
Yeah, we do allow that as well. We allow system ringtones, system alarm tones,
Acha.
system notification tones, anything.
Yeah, the power of open
Yeah.
source. Yeah, this great points. If I summarize that, there is a problem with battery saving with background notifications. There is a problem with custom sounds. And as you mentioned, there are some problems with rich media or rich notifications in general. And
Critical notifications.
and IM critical notifications, right? And then getting the state of your system. I think iOS it might still be easier.
Yeah.
It's one OS, one value.
Yeah.
Android it is harder, but yeah, things come up.
Yeah.
I mean, problems are with open source, and there are solutions with open source.
That's how the open source community works. There's always a new package coming up.
One thing, basically, I haven't figured it out. Like, I haven't got that feature to implement in any of my application. Like, I was thinking of it, like, for a long time. Like, for some of the application, like, let's say WhatsApp, you will get the option to select any kind of system, like, let's say some kind of sound or some kind of ringtone, which will get played when someone calls you. Like, have we figured it out? Like, in terms of React Native, for both Android and iOS.
So you're saying how WhatsApp plays like different tones for different DMs, right, and different group chats. Is that what you're saying? The different sounds and all.
I mean, user will get the ability to pick up their ringtones.
Exactly what he mentioned, that in their application, user can pick their system sounds or whatever they wish
Yeah.
for their particular notification.
Mm.
And I'm assuming you are giving them custom, so it's
Yeah,
not
okay.
just one sound
Yeah.
Okay.
sound for each notification, right?
Yes. Yes.
So actually, I was going to mention this on my next question. Is that what are the best practices you would recommend the developers who are working with notifications right now? And one of the things which I was going to come to is channels and groups.
Mm.
If I cover this whole term with an umbrella, is that be updated with what latest your operating system is allowing you to, and make use of it. Make use of the channels which Android provides, the notification grouping which is there in Android for quite time. iOS has started landing those.
Mm.
As soon as they're with you, make use of that.
Mm.
And one of the main things which I wanted to mention was channels. You could foresee yourself making one channel or not making a channel at all, just pushing notifications for your application in your general channel, and everything will work fine.
Mm.
Everything actually will work fine, but it's always better that you categorize your notifications, divide them into channels, and then you can also give access to users in your application to change sounds of each categories which you have made. Let's say if it's WhatsApp, you could have a different sound for group notification, different sound for DM notification. In fact, if I'm not wrong, WhatsApp makes channel for each DM, right?
Yes.
So for
Yes.
each DM, you can set a different notification sound, and that is not limited by your application settings. You can go to your system settings and then settings of your application. So application settings and setting of your application is a different thing in Android, same in iOS,
Mm.
but different in Android, and you can change it from both the places. So let's say your app's learning curve is bad. I mean, it should not be, but even if it's bad, someone cannot figure out how to go to settings, how to check the, how to change the ringtones. Someone with advanced Android knowledge can always do that, and having users the access and having user the granular access to silence something out even if needed, that can be done. Anything other than channels, and I think I spoke about channels a lot. I'm a huge fan of it. Anything other than channels which you would want to put in as best practices which needs to be followed?
Yeah, I mean, let me add to the channels part because I agree. So channels are great, right? You should always have multiple channels for different things. Like even we, for example, in our app, we have a clear distinction between critical notifications and promotional and like app updates and things like that. Anything that we have clear distinction, we have several channels, and our app directly gives access to the user to sort of customize how they want their notifications to be in every single channel. You can customize the sound, you can customize whether or not it's critical, you can customize what volume channel they play on, you can customize the sound, the volume percentage that they play on. Even if you want certain channels to sort of play on full volume, we can actually do that, right? And we give the user full access to that.
Also, you can have priorities set to your
Yes.
channels.
Yeah.
Even
Yes.
if you don't have access to critical
Yes,
channels,
exactly.
you can still have priorities
Yes,
set to
exactly,
your channels. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and it's important that we give the user complete control of the channels and how much notifications they want, right? Because too much is just noise for the user and they will just be dissatisfied with the application. And even Android actually enforces this in some way,
Yes.
all right? Because one important thing that a lot of developers just do not understand for some reason, even though documentations clearly mention it, that Android channels, right, once they are created, they are partially immutable by the developer itself. So things like sounds, right, you cannot keep changing the sound as a developer itself. Once the channel has been made, Android actually prevents the developer from changing the sounds and things like that afterwards, and that is done as a measure to provide more control to the user, right?
So when you are changing that from your application settings,
Yeah, so that's the catch. So a lot of we did a lot of digging on GitHub issues, on Stack Overflow, on a lot of these things. So how people are doing this is actually they're making different channels for different sounds.
Different and then they are using those particular channels.
Yeah.
But if I go to settings in my if I go to
Yeah.
settings of my app in system settings,
Yeah.
it might look cluttered because there would be a lot of channels.
No, you can delete channels.
Oh,
Yes. You can delete
you
channels.
can
So
create.
you
So
can create
every time
delete.
you are changing a sound, you create a new channel and delete the
So
old
when
one.
you do it through this from your app itself as a developer, you will have to do that. But when a user is doing it, the user has full
User
control
has-
to.
Yes.
Yeah. So like I said, the Android channels are very user focused,
Yes.
right? So that's a good thing actually as a consumer.
That's one of the things which I say is common between iOS and Android, because if you have to do any settings of your application, you go to your settings app and then go to app.
You can.
Even the user specific settings are out there, but for Android it's only channels and you have to dig a little deep. So just a public suggestion from us to Android, maybe make channels more accessible so
Yeah.
more users can
Yeah.
understand. It's a great thing which Android provides, and it would be great if people from non-tech backgrounds start
Yeah.
understanding that.
Yeah.
If I have learned, I have implemented notifications. Now I see channels in each app and see, wow, that is great.
Yeah.
Maybe a regular user can make access to that and actually make use of the great thing which already has been built.
Yes, exactly. Um, yeah, but coming back to your question, right? Best practices. So, like I said, so it's always important to ensure that your users have a net positive experience from your application. Because while I initially said that notifications are one of the most powerful toolkits in a developer's belt, they can also be used maliciously, right? They can also have a negative impact. Too much notifications can also have a negative impact on your user experience, right? So it is powerful, but with great power comes great responsibility. Yes. So yeah. So I generally give people certain guidelines, right? So put yourself in the user's shoes and consider some of the following. One thing is first evaluate whether or not you actually need notifications, right? Because of course, as a developer or as a startup making apps or a company, any company that is building apps and wants to implement notifications, right? It might be something that's reasonable for us or something that we want, but think from your customer's perspective. Would your customer benefit from your notifications? Is there any value that you provide, right? Let's say you're an e-commerce platform, so you provide notifications about offers, discounts. Yeah, that's all good. Shipping notifications, that's relatively more important, right? When your package is going to be delivered. Let's say you're a messaging platform and you provide DM notifications, VoIP call notifications. Yeah. Or maybe you handle support tickets, right? And you want to notify your user when customer support responds to them, right? These are all perfectly valid reasons to implement notifications. They're good reasons. But let's say um, you just want to sell your product more, or you just want to so there are some apps I do not want to mention, right? A lot of them actually say buy premium and get 20% off today, right? They
Yes.
send you a notification for this at 2 a.m. Why
Yeah,
is it
so
necessary?
Android notifications have become quite a place for spam, and
Yeah.
that should be dealt with developers itself,
Yeah.
because you will get that power always to show
Yeah,
notifications.
they wake you up at 4 a.m. and tell you 40% off on premium. Why do I need to know this?
Yeah, you will lose user retention in that
Yeah,
case.
you just the user just
Instead of-
ends up.
The urgency of notification gets irrelevant when
Yes.
you spam,
Yeah.
because most of the time I tend to swipe down and click on cross, not seeing
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So most of the time, the moment someone sends me an ad saying buy this and get like a free discount or something like that, I just immediately turn off notifications.
Exactly. So yeah, good points. Notifications are a great tool and has to be managed in responsibly, sorry, and also have to make sure you don't spam the user. You inform your user and get attention when it is actually needed, uh, not the sake of it, obviously, because you are not the only application installed on the phone. Have an understanding of that. And this brings me to my final question: is with these great enhancements which we have got in past times, rich media notifications might have been a, a far dream for a React Native developer 4 or 5 years ago. It's very easy now. Where do you foresee the future of notifications in React Native in coming years?
So, like when you, so I met on one points on best practices, which was we have we have documentation. So most of the time, what a developer used to do, that they overlook the documentation. They don't dwell much into the documentation, and they just go through some of the random things, and they start implementing the notification, and later they realize like, okay, this is how, okay, we need to change this takes a lot of time to understand. I mean, I have understood that it takes a few extra time to implement notification in a proper way. You have to dwell a lot. You have to check how it can be implemented, how this can be implemented, like channels, for example. You have to dwell a lot in that particular sense. Another thing which I forgot to mention was you need to identify whether you want local notification or not, basically. So the problem with local notification is that you will lose like let's say the uh, uh, background service issue. Okay. So with the local notification you will lose the notifications, like if it is a call application, WhatsApp or some kind of application, uh, in time you will the call has already been made and notification has reached after 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you have to identify in that case, like if you don't want to use local notification, you have to identify like your app, for what purpose your app has been made.
Yeah.
And based on that, don't use local notification, or you want to use. So this is an important point, which I have actually I in one of my first application I did that, and I lost some time implementing that, and even after that I didn't achieve it. So then I came back to the I removed the application, removed the notification, and then I implemented through the backend. Yeah.
Excellent point. I didn't first like go through
Yeah.
documentation, learn actually
Yeah,
how
exactly.
notifications are done rather than. But I recommend the first developer who's doing that is to
Yeah.
document for others.
Yeah.
So it becomes easier, because at the end of the day, our job is to make easier for the next developer who comes in.
Yeah.
Coming back to my original question, where do you foresee the future of notifications in React Native? I have my answer. I'll come to it.
Yeah. So I mean, in terms of capability, I'm we have come a long way. Like earlier, we used to have a lot of used to do a lot of changes on native side. Many sometimes we have to create some kind of intent on the native side as well, to make the make the appearance looks better. But we have got a lot of more capability, and in future, I'm looking like we will get the whole capability on the React Native side. Like a developer who has just started on let's say React Native and don't have idea on Android and iOS side. So he will get the whole capability and he can design the whole notification and everything without dwelling much into the native side. So like let's say setting up the uh, icon image, for example. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so those things on there has been some time issues with the setting up the sounds. Even if you set it, you will not get it.
Very out of context, but
Yeah.
Expo might be of great help here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, expo notification, yeah, they have. So this is the one thing, and yeah, there are a lot of players in the market which have come. Like I was looking into this airship push notification, and they have really pretty good things to offer. So people can look into that as well. And yeah, that's all.
Yeah, so in terms of the future of notifications, I definitely feel like they will continue to get richer, right? In terms of presentability, in terms of interaction as well. So recently, something that's been making news is the iOS live notification, right? And how Swiggy has implemented that, right? If anyone's seen the
Yeah,
iOS
actually, yes.
Swiggy screenshots, yeah, that's it's making a lot of news, and even they've implemented the dynamic island thing and all that. right? So these are all richer presentability, right, that manufacturers and operating systems are implementing. I believe Android is also implementing something similar, right? Better interactions, right? Currently, we can do a lot. We can press buttons from notifications. We can reply to messages from notifications, right? We can do a lot, but I feel like there can be better interaction, right? We should be able to do more things with notifications in the future. So appearance, interactions, behaviors, all of these things will just continue to improve, continue to get richer to provide more engaging experiences for users, right? And I hope that React Native packages and open source maintainers will also catch on to these and actually implement more of these new and upcoming OS features into React Native notification packages so that more developers can take advantage of them.
Yeah, great point. So my interpretation of future of notifications in React Native is just that. Android notifications are getting more standards applied to it by every version of it, and probably with Android 14 interfaces for notifications and every IAM out there would be pretty standardized. And I hope the packages we have will make use of it, will make use of whatever our latest operating systems are providing, be it Android, be it iOS. As you mentioned, kudos to Swiggy for implementing live view and dynamic island in such a short time.
Yeah.
Also, one thing which I have noticed is a lot of applications don't update their notifications. They keep sending out the updated notifications. Swiggy, I'm looking at you. And uh, let's wrap this up. It has been a great session. We discussed about the challenges we have on each of the platform and the ease of notifications with Notify right now. And maybe in future we'll see Notify becoming even more powerful or something more powerful replacing Notify. Either way, I'm excited for that. Thank you. Thanks all the audience for joining us. Do follow us on our social media pages on LinkedIn and Twitter. And please tune in for the next episode of React Native Rundown, which we'll have. You can follow the links in the description down below. Thank you, and thank you for joining. Bye.